In today's video, we'll be creating a recession style finance thumbnail. Now the objective with these style of thumbnails is to create the sense of fear, worry and struggle. And today I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. So without wasting any more of your time, let's get straight into the video. So let's start off by creating a new file. So let's keep the width to 1920 by 1080. Let's keep all the other options the same and click create. Starting off with the background, so what I'll do is just simply click on the adjustment layers, click on solid color, and I'll just paste in the hex code of the color we'll be using today. I'll provide that hex code for you guys down below. Let's click OK, and now it's time to add in our subject. Okay guys, so here I have an image of a subject which I found on freepik.com, and I'll link that in the description down below. Now with any thumbnail, and especially in this case for a recession style thumbnail, it's very important that the facial expression of the subject and even the pose of the subject matches with the theme of the thumbnail topic. So obviously being in a recession is not a good thing, and most people in that scenario would be worried, stressed or even scared. And so what we have right here is the perfect example of a subject expressing those emotions. You can clearly see that the subject is stressed and worried, and you can also tell by the pose with the hand on the head. This shows that the subject is worried. So remember guys, always find a subject which matches the vibe of the thumbnail, and this is a perfect example. Let's now focus on our subject and do our basic enhancements and adjustments. So let's start off with that. So I'm just going to start off with the dodge and burn effect, and you'll probably know how to do this by now, but of course I'm going to run through it. Let's go to the adjustments, click on curves. Let's create two curves layers, so press Command or Control J to duplicate the layer, and let's just clip both of these to the subject layer. So just hold down Alt or Option and click in between the two layers to create a clipping mask. And let's then go ahead and just rename these to highlights, and we'll do shadows for the top layer. And now guys, let's just adjust the curve. So let's just take the highlights up like so for the highlights layer, and let's now for the shadows layer do the inverse. Let's take this in the opposite direction. Something like this should be fine. Let's then go ahead and click within the layer masks of both of these layers, and let's just press Command or Control I to just invert these layer masks so that these effects are no longer visible on screen. And now it's just a matter of painting these effects back in to the subject where we want them to be. So for the highlights, let's click within the layer mask, let's press B for the brush tool and increase the size of the brush, and we can even zoom into the subject just to get a better view. Let's now just adjust the flow. Let's take this to 10% and also make sure that you have the white color selected and that you have a soft brush. And now let's just paint over the highlights already existing on the subject. So wherever there are highlights, let's just paint over those. Now as you can see, the eyes are pretty white as they are, so I'm not going to go over them too much just to avoid making them look overly unrealistic. We'll keep it to that. I'm not going to go over that too much. So you get the gist of this guys. Just go over the highlights on the subject. And let's now do the exact same thing but for the shadows. So we are enhancing the shadows by painting over them. Let's click on the shadows layer mask and let's just change the flow to about 5%. And let's now do the exact same thing but for the shadows. So let's get these eyebrows. And I'm going to speed this up guys, and if you want to see a full tutorial on the dodge and burn effect, I already have that on my channel. So just go ahead and watch that video. So I've just finished my dodging and burning, and this is before and this is after guys. So before and after. So you can see how this technique has a major impact on the subject, and if you aren't doing it already, you're really missing out on an opportunity to make your subject stand out. I now want to just change the color of the subject's jacket, just because I don't think it will merge in well with the other elements we're about to add in. So I'm going to change the color of the jacket to a black color, and I'll also change the color of the t-shirt to a sort of darkish gray color. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's first make a selection of the jacket. So let's go to the quick selection tool, click on that, and let's now just make a selection of the jacket. And with this tool, you're never going to get it perfect, but it's always worth just making the best selection you can. And then you can always go back in and refine your selection afterwards. Just try and get the best selection you can. Yep, this is a pretty good selection, and any refinements we can make that afterwards. What I'll do now is go to adjustment layers, click on hue and saturation, and let's now just decrease the saturation all the way down to -100, so completely removing any saturation from the jacket. Let's also take down the lightness value, so let's just take this down to, let's say, -82 will do the trick. If we take it down any further, we're going to lose a lot of detail in the jacket. So let's just keep it to -82. And then, as you can see guys, it's just a matter of just refining the selection just to make sure that we don't have these fringes right here, as you can clearly see. So what we need to do is just simply go in with the brush tool, press B for the brush tool. Let's increase the flow back to 100%, and then just simply with the white color selected, just paint over the edges. And as you can see, we are now refining our selection. So I'm just going to go ahead and refine the selection, and I'll be right back in just a moment. So I've just gone ahead and refined my selection, and I've also done the same thing for the t-shirt. I simply made a selection of the t-shirt and changed the color of that as well. So here are the settings for the t-shirt. I just took the saturation all the way down, and I've decreased the lightness value down to -46. Now as for the jacket, I want to darken this even further, but if we use hue and saturation, if I decrease the lightness value, I'm going to lose some detail in the jacket. So how can we remedy this? So I'll be using levels now to darken the jacket whilst also maintaining the quality. So let's go to adjustment layers, click on levels, and let's now just first of all click within our hue and saturation layer mask and hold down Option or Alt, and then just drag and take it into the levels layer mask. Then just click yes, and that will simply create a duplicate, meaning that now when we adjust the level sliders, anything that we adjust will only apply to the jacket. And now let's just adjust these sliders. So I just want to increase the shadows a little bit. So let's just bring this up, let's say to 6. Let's now just darken the midtones as well. So let's just take this to sort of 0.9. Yeah, that looks nice. And let's just increase the highlights. So let's take these up to something like this, works just fine. So 223 for the highlights. So just to give you a quick before and after, this is without levels and this is with levels. So we've managed to maintain a lot of the quality in the jacket whilst also being able to darken it as well. Okay, now time to add in the American flag. Now you can use whatever flag you want, but in this case I'm just using an American flag. Now I found this image on FreePic and I'll link it in the description down below. Now what we have to do is just drag this behind the subject layer like so, and then we can also rename this to flag just to keep organized, guys. And now let's just try resizing this. So let's press Command or Control T and let's just bring it down a bit. So something like this for now, perfect. And we can add a little warp to this. So let's just right click on warp, and now let's just manipulate the shape of this flag just to make it not look so flat, maybe give some curvature to it. So let's just go ahead and just try and create some sort of curvature. And again, you can experiment with this. You're not going to get it right the first time. It's more so of an experimental process. So just spend some time playing around with the shape, although you do want it to maintain the flag shape, guys. So don't go too crazy with this method. Just sort of, you know, maybe we can sort of make it look a little rigid, a little rugged, just by moving the shape around ever so slightly. Something like this maybe can do the trick. Maybe we can bring this down. Yeah, maybe this will do for now. And we can always go back in and adjust this at any point. I'm just going to keep it at something like this for now. Yeah, so that's simply before and that's after, just adding a bit of movement and shape to it. And then what I will do is just decrease the opacity of this flag. So let's take this down to something like 65% will do. And the reason for that is because it's really bold. So we want this to sort of blend in with the background. Just to explain things so you understand, as you can see, the background and the flag sort of blend in well together. If I increase the opacity to 100, you can clearly see there's a lot of contrast between the background and this foreground element. So we want to blend everything together, and simply by lowering the opacity we are able to achieve that result. And now moving on to the fun part, which is to add some fire into the background. We're going to try and merge the fire in with the flag to make it look as if the flag is burning. Obviously, since this is a recession thumbnail, we want to make it look as if this country in particular is not doing too well. So by adding in a burning flag, it really sort of helps to portray that idea, and that's the objective of this thumbnail. So let's start off by adding in the fire. So I'm now just going to paste this image in, and this fire overlay I have found on FreePic, and I'll link it in the description down below. Let's just go ahead and press Command or Control T, and let's just bring this down to size. And we can also start off by just changing the blending mode to screen. And as you can see, it sort of blends in now with the background. Of course, we need to place this behind the subject layer, so let's do that. But we want it to be on top of the flag layer. So place it in between the two. Let's now just rename this layer to fire layer, just to keep organized. And now we can just sort of play around with this layer and try and place it in a good way to make it look as if the flag is burning. So let's just zoom out a bit. Let's now just try and adjust the look of this. Maybe we can play with the size as well until we get something which looks realistic. Yeah, let's start off with something like this. I think this looks pretty good for now. And we also need to get some of this area involved. So let's go ahead and do that, guys. So what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm actually going to duplicate this fire layer. Press Command or Control J to do that. Let's now press Command or Control T. And let's now just maybe just rotate this and sort of try and get some in this spot as well. Yeah, that's perfect as that is. Let's press enter. Perfect. And I would class this as the first step, just adding in the visual elements. But there's obviously a clear problem at the moment. It doesn't look too blended in, and so we need to work on blending in these elements together. And let's start off with the flag. So select the flag layer, and let's now create a layer mask like so. So create a layer mask on the flag layer. Let's now press B for the brush tool, increase the size of your brush, and also make sure to change the color to black, because we're now going to conceal parts of the flag. Also make sure that you have your flow set to 100 and that you also have a soft brush. So make sure you set the hardness to 0. And then, guys, it's just a matter of just erasing some parts of the flag, maybe the bottom part, just so that you don't have any hard lines. And of course, we also want to erase some of this simply because a burning flag will have parts missing. So we want to create the illusion of a flag which is disintegrating. So let's start off by just painting some of the flag out. And the benefit of using a layer mask is that if you invert the color to white, if you make a mistake, you can paint parts of the flag back in. So we're working in a very non-destructive way. So let's make sure that the color is set back to black, and now let's just paint some of the flag out. So let's paint this whole region. In fact, let's get all of this bottom region sort of out of the way. And don't worry if it doesn't look realistic with the fire layer, we are going to fix that as well. So this is a good start. Sort of blend some of this out. We can also do some up here. Sort of blend this out. Yeah. Wow, this is looking really good, guys. Especially with the background color that we picked, this is really helping to sort of blend in the colors together. Maybe we can remove some here. No, and of course, guys, if you make any mistakes, you can always undo. And like I mentioned, you can always use the inverse color to just go ahead and paint back in the parts which you've made a mistake with. So let's just do something like this. And you can spend as much time as you want on this step. And I would actually recommend that you don't rush this, simply because you want to get a good result in the end, of course. So let's now just work on the top part. I don't know if I want to remove it. Maybe we'll keep some of it in. We'll keep it to something. Yeah, we'll keep it to that. Okay, moving swiftly on. I now want to just refine these edges. As you can see, they are sharp edges. So let's go to our fire layer. Let's create a layer mask and let's do the exact same thing. So press B for the brush tool. And now with a soft brush, let's just soften out these edges. And as you can see, it sort of blends in now with the background. Really good. Yeah. Let's just blend some more out like that, and we'll probably add in another overlay in this position, so don't worry about that. Now let's go to the other fire layer that we've created. Let's do the same thing, create a layer mask, and let's now do the same thing. Let's just blend some out. Yeah, looking pretty good. Now what we also have to do, guys, on top of what we've just done, is also decrease the opacity of both of these fire layers. Just because the fire is so vibrant, we want the colors to sort of match with the flag, or at least the brightness levels of both elements. So let's just decrease the opacity of this to, let's say, something like 80%, and do the same for the other fire layer. So just decrease the opacity to 80%. That's before. Very vibrant, and this is after. So we are toning down everything to blend in well with each other. Let's now focus on adding in another overlay into this blank region right here. So let's start off with that. And let me now just paste that in. And as you can see, we have a nice little overlay with some sparks. And I will place this below the subject layer, but above the fire layers. Let's then go ahead and change the blending mode to screen. And I will now just press Command or Control T. And then let's just look into flipping this. So let's flip horizontal. Yeah, that looks really good. And then just zoom out slightly and then just place this nicely on screen. So we want to cover the bottom region really, nothing more than that. And we also want this to be quite subtle, so don't overdo it with these overlays, guys. It's quite easy to actually overdo it. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep it to something like this. That looks pretty good to me. Maybe we can even resize this and make this a little smaller. Yeah, maybe to something like this. And then I will just go ahead and decrease the opacity of this to 80% as well. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. This is before and this is after. What we could also do is maybe just create a layer mask and then press B for the brush tool and sort of just try and blend this in a little bit. Yep, it's pretty blended in as it is. So I'm not going to do too much here, guys. Yeah, that's looking pretty good. Maybe we can undo that part. Yeah, that's looking pretty good, guys. Perfect. Okay guys, we're making good progress. Let's now tackle the arrow. So I want an arrow to be coming from the top left corner, and I want this arrow to be coming down in a downwards motion just to help to symbolize that the economy is not doing too well. So let's tackle that. So what I'm going to do is just create a new layer at the very top like so, and I'll press P for the pen tool now, and I'll just make sure to have these settings as follows. To make sure you have no fill, you have the options right here set to shape, and you also change the stroke color to the color you see on screen, and I'll provide you with the hex code for that color. Also make sure to have the stroke size set to 26 pixels, and now we are ready to begin adding in our arrow. So let's start off by creating our first point in the top left corner, and we can make our way down the canvas. So let's just make some points like so. Doesn't have to be completely accurate. The point here is just to get a number of points on the screen. Once we have created the points, we can now press A for the direct selection tool, and we can now just click on any singular point to adjust the position of it. So what I'll do right now is just go ahead and fiddle about with these positions, and I'll be right back in just a moment. So guys, that's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points in total, and you can see that I've made my adjustments to the positions. Let's now create the arrowhead. So let's start off by creating a new layer. Let's press P for the pen tool, and let's just adjust these settings. So we want to cancel out the stroke, and let's just now transfer the color to fill. So let's use the same color we used for the base of the arrow. Now the way that I create arrowheads is pretty simple. Let's just zoom in. Let's go ahead and create a point, and then create subsequent points by holding down Shift and holding down Shift once again, and then just connecting all the points together. Let's now press Enter, and now let's just zoom in even further. Let's right click on the shape, rasterize the layer, and now let's get the marquee tool, and let's now select half of the shape, as you can see right here. Let's then go ahead and press Command or Control J to duplicate the layer, and now as you can see we have half of the arrowhead. What we can then do is just delete this shape. We can now hold down Alt or Option and hold down Shift and drag like so. Let's now press Command or Control T, right click, and then flip horizontal, and then it's just a matter of joining these 2 points together, as you can clearly see. Once you've done that, let's just select both of these layers and press Command or Control E to merge them together. And now you have an arrowhead which is completely symmetrical. Now from this stage, guys, it's simply a matter of just dragging this over like so. Let's now press Command or Control T, just rotate this, and we can now adjust until we get the perfect result. Just play around with the movement until you get something which looks exactly how you want it to look. You can even go ahead and press Command or Control T and just adjust the sizing, bring it in, change the sizing. You can do what you want with the shape. So I'm just going to go ahead and adjust the position, and I'll be right back in just a moment. So yeah, this looks pretty good to me. I just adjusted the position, and I also increased the size of the triangle. So just spend a bit of time with that. Now what I want to do is just merge these 2 layers together. So the stem of the arrow and the actual arrowhead. Let's press Command or Control E whilst having them both selected and merge them together. Let's now rename this to arrow to keep organized. Now obviously the arrow is not done yet, so let's just decrease the opacity of this. Let's bring this to about 60%. Let's see how that looks. Let's keep this to about, let's say 70% will do the trick. Once you have done that, let's now just double click on the arrow layer. Let's click on outer glow and let's add some red glow to this. So the color we are going to be using is the color you see right here, and I'll provide you with that text code. All we really need to do here is just add a very large sort of outer glow effect to the arrow. Let's say something like 120. Yep, that looks pretty good to me. We just want this to act as a sort of drop shadow to the arrow whilst also keeping it to the color theme we have today. So something like this works just fine. And that's the arrow done. Now there's one quick adjustment that I want to make to the subject just to enhance the expression on his face. So what I will do is just create a new layer above the subject layer. So have it placed above the subject layer, of course above these adjustments as well. And now let's just press B for the brush tool, and I want to zoom in to the subject's eyes. Let's then go ahead and pick a sort of maroonish color, something like this will do. And now let's take the flow of our brush all the way down to 1%. And what we will do now is just simply paint over the eyes a few times just to add a red tint to the eyes. And what this does is it makes it look as if the person has just cried or is much more stressed about the situation. And this is going to help us in delivering our message even better. So this is before and this is after. It looks as if the person has just cried. Let's now jump into blending the subject with the background. As you can see right now, it doesn't look as if the subject is in the same environment, and so we are going to remedy that by adjusting the color of the subject. And the way we are going to do that is by using color balance. So let's start with that. Let's go ahead and select the subject layer. Let's go ahead and click on adjustment layers, click on color balance, and as you can see, it's already clipped to the subject, and now we can focus on adjusting these sliders. So let's start off with the midtones. As you can see, the environment is pretty red and orange, so we want to match the subject's color to the color of the environment. So let's start off with the signs. Let's bring them more to the reddish side. So as you can see, let's add a bit of red to the subject. Plus 13 looks pretty good. Let's try and add a bit of magenta into the subject, ever so slightly, not too much, -3. Let's adjust the yellows. Yeah, let's bring the yellows down as well to something like -6. That works well. Let's now go into the highlights and let's adjust these sliders as well. So let's just adjust the reds, yeah, to something like +7. We can also adjust the magentas. No, we'll keep the magentas to 0. Let's adjust the yellows to something like -3, and let's now go into the shadows, guys. So let's go to shadows and let's just do the same thing one more time. So adjust the shadows. So let's take the reds up to something like +2. Do the same for the magentas, but not too much. Let's take this to -1, very subtle. And now let's just add a slight touch of blue. So something like this looks just fine. This looks pretty good to me, guys. So this is before and this is after. So you can see how this orange tint really helps to blend in the subject with the background. And now to add some final finishing touches, I just want to add some light to the subject. And this is going to be obviously ambient light from the actual environment, and this will be shining on the subject. So what I will do is make sure I have the subject layer selected. Let's now go to adjustment layers and let's go ahead and create a solid color adjustment layer. Let's then just source a sort of orange color, something like this works just fine. And let's now just place this at the very top, like so. Once we've done that, let's just change the blending mode to screen, and let's now click within the layer mask and press Command or Control I to invert the layer mask. And now let's press B for the brush tool. Let's just increase the size of our brush ever so slightly. Make sure to have the white color selected, and let's just take our flow up to something like 60% forward now. And let's now start adding in some light. So just brush over the edges. And you can see that it sort of makes it look as if there's light being reflected onto the subject, which is exactly the effect we are looking for. So just add some light. Add some light over here as well. Yep, this is looking really good. This is before and this is after. So yes, you can see that adding some light really does have a drastic effect on the overall aesthetics as well. And then you can obviously use the inverse color to just remove some of the effect if it's too much. And just spend some time working on this, guys. So what I'll do now is I'm just going to decrease the size of my brush. I'll increase the flow to something like 80%. And I'll now just zoom into this subject and just add some sharper lines. Yep, as you can see on this side. Yeah, this looks pretty good to me. This is before and this is after. Now, after assessing the subject, I think that we can change the t-shirt color to a sort of lighter gray color just to create a little bit of separation between the t-shirt and the jacket. And this is really going to help to create some contrast. So let's just go back to the t-shirt layer and let's just increase the lightness value of this and make this a sort of grayish color. So keep it to something like 0. I think that looks better than before. This is before and this is after. Yep, I think that looks better. And now for the final step, which you may have guessed, camera raw filter. And we are going to use this to really spice up our thumbnail. So let's go ahead and just merge all our layers first of all. So press Command, Option, Shift and E. And that's just going to merge everything in our layers section into one layer. Let's then go ahead and right click and convert it into a smart object. And let's now click on Filter and Camera Raw Filter. And let's now spice up our thumbnail. So let's start off in the light section. So let's try and increase the exposure. Yeah, that does wonders. Let's keep this to about 0.20. Let's increase the contrast. Wow, that looks much better. So let's just increase the contrast. Let's say to 20%. That's before and that's after. Yep, 20% for contrast. Let's just work on the highlights ever so slightly, but not too much. I think I'm actually going to just increase the highlights by 2 points, +2. Let's also increase the shadows. So let's just bring this down a bit. Yep, to something like -10 will do the trick. Let's now go into color. Let's adjust the vibrance and keep in mind there's a lot of colors going on already and they're quite strong as well, so we don't want to enhance the colors too much. So let's just adjust the vibrance. Let's keep this 2 + 5, no more than that. Let's adjust the saturation as well. So let's just take this to sort of +1, nothing more than that. Let's now move into effects. Let's increase the texture. Let's take this to +25. Yep, that looks really nice. And let's also increase the clarity. So let's take this up to, let's say 10 will do the trick. Let's take this to +10. Now let's try and add a vignette as well. So let's just add a slight vignette. Yep, that looks really nice. Let's just add a slight vignette. Let's take this to -10. And let's also add some grain. So I'm going to take this up to 12 grain. Yep, that looks really nice. Let's now move into detail and let's increase the sharpening. Let's take this to 20. 20 sharpening will do the trick. I'm pretty happy with how this looks, guys, so I'm going to keep it at that. Let's now click OK. And there you have it, guys, a recession style finance thumbnail. Shout out to Graham Stephan for the thumbnail inspiration. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe to my channel because I'll be posting content just like this weekly. Thank you very much, guys, for watching this video, and until next time, peace.